This is Justin Domino, and you are listening to the Stand Firm podcast, where we're talking about all things faith, Bible, and culture, and how to stand firm in a world that makes it difficult to do so. Let's dive in together. Hi, welcome back. Episode 3, Stand Firm podcast. I'm here today with Johnny Jacobowski. Johnny's our director of marketing and content, social media, all things video. That's the old title, but yeah, all things video, photos. Thank you, Johnny, for being here. But I brought you on here because we just did an episode last time with Wendy Gordy. She's our pastor of worship, and talked a lot about feminism and in the church and what's the gospel's response to feminism. But there's two things. I don't think you can talk about feminism without also talking about, like, okay, now let's talk about the men.
Yeah.
But also part of the reason why I think feminism has been on the rise so much over the years is because, while I hate the phrase toxic masculinity, because everything is toxic nowadays, there are times and there are people who do have some toxic forms of masculinity.
For sure.
So I want to open up with a question for you. When you think of the role and the value of men, what are the first things that come to your mind?
Oh my goodness. Well, here we go. Buckle up, everybody. The roles and the value of men. Well, I can speak for myself, like, just as a Christian, and I mean a godly man, if you will, right?
So godly.
No, but I'm also a father, so I guess maybe my roles are different, in my mindset are going to be different than somebody who doesn't have kids, because a lot of what I do or my train of thought is centered around how to be a good dad, how to raise my kids, while also walking in my own faith and kind of driving the way I parent them and raise them and lead them from that. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I would say the role. There's obviously God's design for a man, which is I'm a husband too. So my role is to sacrificially love my wife and lead my family spiritually. And yeah, there's a lot of weight to it, but I think for me especially, it comes down to having a relationship with Jesus first and driving everything from there. That's probably the best way I can describe the role of a man is seek God first, then lead, I don't know if that's a great example, but or a great explanation. That's kind of just mine.
It's good.
So
where our world is going right now is under this mindset of, like, men are bad or men are toxic.
Yeah.
Or, it's time for the women to step up because this is how men had, and yes, of course, there have been really bad men. But what would you say to a world that is consistently putting men down? What would be your response as a Christian man?
Mine is probably going to be similar to anybody that listened to the episode you did with Wendy, just about, the rise of modern feminism is we need each other, right? If you go to scripture, there's a design for male, there's a design for female, there is God's design ultimately for us together, right? So I think you had even mentioned it before that we oftentimes will fight the wrong enemy, like either a man is looking at a woman as the enemy or vice versa, when in reality there is an enemy and it's Satan. So I think it is God's design of us needing to be together, work together. It is not one over the other. And I don't know, I say to people all the time, like, if you look at either toxic masculinity, modern feminism, whatever, when we try to kind of blur those lines and cross over and do what the other is designed to do, and we experience issues, and we sit back, and if you look at it from a 30,000-foot view, you could say, oh, weird, there's issues. I wonder why. It's because there's a specific design for us, right? And it's for us to coexist and work together in God's design.
Yeah. Well, you're hitting the nail on the head when you talk about, like, what Wendy talked about in the last episode about, like, what feminism does is it drives a wedge between women and the man. It sees men as evil and women as the women need to step up because look how evil the men are. Men are the enemy. And it's like, no, like, yes, there's a lot of problems in the male sphere, but what Satan wants to do is he wants us to treat each other like we are the enemy. Like, I hate women and women hate men, and let's just keep it this way. But there is an ultimate enemy. It's Satan and it's sin, and he's trying to drive it to where we hate each other rather than him. It creates this whole enemy that's just not even correct. Now we're fighting the whole wrong battle. It just doesn't even work anymore.
Yeah.
But what's the way out? Because what I see in the world today is, as a response to feminism, now you have the rise of like Andrew Tate, you have the rise of like Joe Rogan, which Joe Rogan is seemingly on a trajectory of potentially like converting to Christianity at some point, which is amazing. Like, that's awesome.
It certainly seems like it. Yeah.
But I see a ton of young Gen Z men seeing Andrew Tate as like this new modern figure of like, this is what it means to be a man. In fact, I was listening to a podcast of Joe Rogan, actually, with Dan Bilzerian. It's probably like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And if you don't know Dan Bilzerian, he is a like world famous poker player, multimillionaire, ran a few businesses. But if you watch him on social media, it's all like he's got a bunch of like supermodels that he's like just hanging out with on private jets, and they're all naked, and it's just like, what? Like, it's crazy. And in their conversation, the very first thing that Rogan said to him in their podcast was, man, if I was 16 years old and I had your money, you're living exactly how I was living. They laughed back and forth, and I'm like, if I was told that would be the most offensive thing I would ever hear. Like, that would be a sign to me, like, I've got to grow up. Like, I'm living a 16-year-old's dream. But this is who young Gen Z men are sort of looking to as, here's the role models. It's the Dan Bilzerians, it's the Andrew Tates, and you look at these guys' lives, and it's like sex, drugs, rock and roll, and money, and that's basically it. What is the Christian way forward? Because we see the negative side of that. If masculinity and manhood isn't about money and career and women and bigger homes and Corvettes, whatever it is, what's the way forward? What do you think?
Okay, so I'm gonna sound possibly repetitive as we go throughout this, and maybe cliche, if you will, but almost everything can kind of be rooted back to open up your Bible and spend time with God, right? Like, if you want to know the way forward, like, you're not the only person that's asked me that before, and my answer is almost always the same: is there is a design for you. Open up the book and read about it, and talk to the person who created you, because I know it sounds, maybe I don't want to sound like it's like a cop-out answer or something.
It's a great answer.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think if you look at like Dan Bilzerian or Andrew Tate, okay, I got to phrase this correctly, but I think their mindset, they're very skewed in a lot of their things, but their mindset is like they want young men to feel confident, feel encouraged, take responsibility for themselves. You know what I mean? Like, there's principles in like what they're preaching that are not completely false.
Oh yeah,
the way they do things, or this kind of like this fired up mindset, it's the same thing as, and you hit this on the head, but it's the same thing as modern feminism. It's getting people fired up to have an emotional reaction to something, right? Like, I am powerful. Like, that's what Andrew Tate is doing, is you be a powerful man, you know what I mean? Like, don't be your own boss. Don't have anybody tell you what to do. Like, you don't need women, push them off to the side, focus on yourself, inner chi, inner peace, inner strength. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of those things is like, yeah, that's good. And if you opened up the Bible, you would find similar calls for you, but coming from a different place in your heart, right?
Coming from a healthy place.
Coming from a different and a healthy place, and about your heart too, right? Like, why we do something is always going to be more important than what we're doing, and where is your heart at when you're doing it, right? So if I'm getting fired up by Andrew Tate, my heart is in this mindset of, I'm doing this because I'm suppressing somebody else because I stand strong. Where if you open up scripture and you go to Jesus and you hear his calling for your life, it's, I'm doing this so I can stand strong and lift others up, right? So that's I
think what people would say to you, because your answer is perfect. I wouldn't say anything differently. Like, when you're like, hey, I would go to the Word and say, here's God's design for manhood, and here's what it means to be a biblical man.
Yeah.
Here's what I think a lot of Americans would tell you. You can't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
God can't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Like what you're telling me to do when I open up the Bible and see what God's design is for me.
Yeah.
What if I have my own design for me? And that to me is like one of the fundamental differences between, I think, surrendering yourself to something greater than yourself and understanding that God has a way that's greater than what you could ever imagine, but also knowing that you are not your own. Like you're not the authority over your life. And that is one of the basic fundamental principles of Christianity. Like Jesus is not only Savior, he's also Lord. But what a lot of people have a problem with is like, well, no, I'm Lord. Like I don't want to live by anybody, whether it's the Quran, the Bible, it doesn't matter. I don't want to live by anybody else's rule book or design. It's all about me. And that's where I think we not only do we go so wrong, obviously we make ourselves God in that moment, but a lot of us are even trying to like follow Jesus while still living under the mindset of like, I'm my own.
I'm Lord.
You can't tell me what to do. Yeah, we see this like in the, feminism's on my mind because we just did the episode, like, but in the abortion movement of like, my body, my choice. Like technically, if you live under like scripture's authority, it's not your body, not your choice. Like this is God's body that he is the creator. We are the created. But
you're making some people angry today.
Well, and men have the same issues. I mean, we talk about like, hey, this is my body, my choice. I can go sleep with whoever I want to go sleep with. I can just raise my body count. And when it comes to women, when we talk about raising their body counts, we think, oh my goodness, she needs to get her life together. When it comes to the men, we think, way to go. We give them a slap on the back and a thumbs up. So men, our bodies are not our choice either. Like we live under the authority of a God. And we have that design is in scripture, and that's what we need to follow. And I think what makes like Andrew Tate so like appealing to a lot of guys is you hit on it. Some of the things that he's talking about, discipline, some of these principles, they're in there. And that I did a TikTok video like 2 years ago on Andrew Tate. It blew up to like 750,000 views or whatever. And it was like how he is a bad portrayal of modern masculinity. And it's negative, it's toxic, whatever.
Yeah.
And I had so many young men flocking to that video in the comment section, like, I can't believe you're against discipline. I can't believe you're against taking responsibility. I'm like, dude, this guy like was on probation for 3 years in like Romania where he lives for like sex trafficking. Like he is not the standard for like male masculinity and like values. And yet some of the things that he teaches, like, yes, there's some discipline in there. So there's some enticing things. But I think what we need to provide young men from a biblical standpoint is that we need a biblical vision for manhood. And not only for like young men, but for all men. Because I know that there's going to be 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds listening to this who are like, I still don't even know. Like, am I a proper biblical man? And I think one of the problems that I've seen is like the version of Christian manhood that we see as like the example is like Ned Flanders. And nobody wants to be Ned Flanders. Like he was a caricature in The Simpsons about what it means to be a Christian man. Nobody wants it. So I think what we need to do is provide a Christian vision. Because here's the reality. Fathers and men are absolutely crucial to society. Fathers and men are
necessity, needed.
Speak more on that.
Well, again, this goes back to right. God's design is for both of us to work together. We're each called to a specific, like, I don't want to say like gender role, right? But we are called to specifics in the way that we carry ourselves, right? Whether you are man or female, but men are an absolute necessity. Like, and I think if just to go back to like what you were saying, some of the boys or men or whoever that maybe attacked you over Andrew Tate, to play devil's advocate on that, I think it's because some of them maybe were in a bad spot, started watching his videos, maybe did instill or start to implement some responsibility into their life or taking control of their own actions or seeing it as like, you are a man, step up, do something. You know what I mean? And maybe they felt this sense of like, and started to see some improvement in their life. So maybe that's where that attack comes from. But I think ultimately, if you follow that and only that, it's going to lead to, right? We say the famous people who are rich and famous, right? You have all the money in the world, yet famous people are still depressed and committing suicide. Why is that? You know what I mean? It's kind of the same thing. If you're getting your sense of worth from the words of Andrew Tate, eventually it's going to lead to there's more here that I'm not getting. Why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? I felt fired up to begin with. Now it has petered off a little bit, where's everything else that I need? Well, to circle back and repeat, what I said before, there is a design for you. And as a man, you are a necessity to society, but to live under the design that God has created for you.
Yeah, well, that's when we flourish. And that's when our wives, our kids, our society flourishes. The world desperately needs men, and it needs fathers to step up and be men.
Yeah.
But if we have a world full of Andrew Tates, I don't think society is going to flourish. We need a biblical version. We need a Jesus version of manhood.
And I would also say where you say, well, yeah, if I'm in society and you tell me that, I need to follow God's design for my life as a man, or, I want to be my own Lord, right? I guess the simplest response to that would be, okay, good luck. Let me know how it works out for you. You know what I mean? To water it down or dumb it down, if you want to say that, it's okay. This is totally a sidebar, but in The Office, when Michael Scott is learning what a surplus is, and Oscar explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old, right? I
love that.
So
I use that all the time.
If you wanted to explain this like a 5-year-old, right, and you want to talk about God's design and teaching for your life, or call to you as a man on how you should be conducting yourself, and your response is, well, I am my own Lord. Don't tell me that I need to follow some higher power who says this is who I need to be. Mm-hmm. There's a reason parents tell you when you're young, watch out, the stove is hot. Don't put your hand up there. And you can say, well, I do what I want. I can do whatever I want to. You can put your hand up there. You can get a 3-degree burn and ruin the rest of the week, right? Mm-hmm. So we can go our own way. We can be our own Lord. Eventually, we're going to fall. And when that happens, where do you turn, right? So if you can come back to there is a design for you, if you can follow it from the start, if you can be proactive, not reactive, right? There's a calling for you, and you don't need to do it on your own. You can still be the strong leader and the man that you want to be with control, right? But underneath God's design for you. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that right there to me is the key. When I grew up trying to figure out what does it mean to be a biblical man, I saw all of the men in my church that I grew up in, they wore baggy khakis with these clunky brown shoes. They were just sort of quiet and hung around. Mm-hmm. The wives talked to everybody. The wives were doing all these great things in the church. The men were just sort of quiet. And I was like, what? Can we have some testosterone in our bodies while also being a great follower of Jesus?
Yes.
That's how it felt. What?
Yes.
So we've got to figure out, because men, fathers, masculinity, it's all crucial. In fact, I have a few stats here. I know I don't allow you to have notes, but I bring notes. But I found these stats, and it says this: kids without fathers, there's a few bullet points here. Kids without fathers are 4 times more likely to live in poverty. They're 2 times greater risk for infant mortality, more likely to suffer emotional and behavioral problems, 7 times more likely to become pregnant as a teen, more likely to commit a crime, more likely to go to prison, and more likely to face abuse and neglect. So this is where, when the world wants to put men down, that's not the answer. We need men to step up and be men. And so what I want to...
Well, that's the result of, let me know how it works out for you.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
You want to put men down, read those stats. Yeah. There you go. We have found out, well, that's how it worked out for you. Yep.
Doesn't work. So here's what I want to do. We've talked a lot about why men are important, talked about a little bit of a biblical vision for it. Let's give some practical steps. And what I want to use is, if you're a man listening to this, I want to give you, these are 5 shifts that every man should make to go from boyhood or immature manhood to a mature, strong Christian man. And this is not my own. I'm adapting this from John Tyson, pastor to New York City. Phenomenal book. In fact, Intentional Father, one of the best books on fatherhood I've ever read. Absolutely phenomenal. But here are the 5 shifts that he says every young boy or every immature man should take to become a man. I'm going to go through one at a time, and I want you to share your thoughts on a few of them. But every young boy or every immature man should go from ease to difficulty, because boys want an easy life, but men embrace difficulty. What are your thoughts on that?
Correct. I mean, those are, whether you want it or not, at some point it's going to, if you are a young boy becoming a man, or if you are a man and you already know this as fact, like, you will agree with me when I say whether you want it or not, at some point it's going to come to you in your life, right? So, taking practical steps to go from ease to difficulty, like, do not live in the mindset if you are younger, right? If I was talking to a 17-year-old right now that maybe heard that and said, well, I don't plan on getting married, or I don't plan on having kids, or at some point you will cross the threshold into manhood, and it will go from ease to difficulty. You can try to eliminate things or certain things to make your life easier, but it will not remain in this mystical fantasy ease that you think it's going to be. At some point it will be difficult, right?
Well, and I think this is in the heart of like every boy, every man. We don't actually want an easy life. I think we think we do. Like, everybody thinks like, oh, if I just make more money, I'll have no stress. If
we
I
want
just
purpose.
We want purpose.
We want purpose.
When you see like little boys out in a field with their dad, and they're like, their dad's in a tractor doing work, and the little boy's out there like helping them like pick up sticks, and like they're trying to clear a field, whatever. The boy wants to be out there. The boy doesn't want to be sitting at home just doing easy, like, let me just lay in bed all day. Boys want a mission, a purpose, to do something hard. There's an old Christian book, I think it's from like 20 years ago, called Do Hard Things. And like, just the title alone is like, every boy wants that. Every man wants to do hard things. There is no purpose in an easy life.
Yeah.
Difficulty matters.
My wife and I went to a marriage conference recently, and they were talking about when boys are younger compared to when girls are younger. Almost all little boys at some point, I'm sure you did it, I know I did it, I know all of my brothers did it, not sure what the age was, nobody teaches us, tells us, but at some point we always find ourselves in front of the bathroom mirror, and we're going like this, right?
Still do this every Sunday afternoon.
We're going like this, we're checking our muscles, and we're like, yeah, we're strong, right? And I know there's little girls who do it too, and there's tomboy girls that do it, but if you look at, statistically speaking, the percentage is always higher for little boys, and nobody told us to do it, but we go in front of the mirror and we do this, and we have this from birth. Weird. Again, it's almost like we were designed for a specific way with intentionality by a higher power who designed us to be the way that we are, right? And we have this instilled in us from a very, very young age. We want purpose. We want to be strong. We do this because this is natural. This is how God designed us to be strong, not for ourselves. When you go from ease to difficulty, you become strong for everybody else around you. You lift them up. You need to be the strength. Ease to difficulty, and I haven't read the book. I ordered it, so I'm going to read it. So I don't know what he talks about with ease to difficulty, but I look at it as you are going from strength to yourself to strength for everybody else. It can be difficult, but it is needed and is what you're called to do.
Well, it leads into the next point perfectly, what you just said, because the second shift every boy or every immature man needs to make is to go from self to others.
Oh, perfect.
Realizing that you are not the center of the universe, like your needs, your wants, your desires is not the most important thing. Yep. When you're a man, you look at everybody else's desires. We see this in the life of Jesus. I mean, he is the pinnacle of what it means to be a man, and he lives out masculinity in the truest and perfect form.
Absolutely.
And basically the definition of Jesus's earthly life was everything was others focused. The way that he healed others, the way that he went to the cross for us, even in his resurrection, what it did was not only accomplish the defeat of Satan, sin, and hell, but what it did is accomplish our spiritual resurrection. Yep. Everything in Jesus's life was for other people, to the glory of the Father, but for other people. And I think men need to consider others in everything that we do. Like when we go to work, even if we work, whether we're a CEO of a large company or we are bagging groceries, it doesn't matter. There's purpose in our work. The purpose is we're providing food for our families. We're providing responsibility for ourselves. And when we do this, other people flourish. Here's the third shift. To go from a whole to a part, knowing that the story, your life, isn't just about you, but you're part of a larger story. It's not necessarily self to others, but like it's more than just you as an individual, more so even more than just you as an individual family, but also recognizing that you're a part of something greater than yourself.
Yeah.
What do you think of when?
I think even just the three that you've read so far, I think goes off of what you just said. It's a perfect example of becoming more like Jesus. That's what this is the trend I'm seeing in these is when you cross the threshold into manhood, you are letting go of your former self and you are becoming more like Jesus through implementing all of these in your life, right? Like you are a part of something greater, and that something greater is humbling yourself to realize that it is not about you. It is about everybody else around you, right? And you becoming more like Jesus to best serve them. Yeah.
One of the things I've seen in our culture recently, which I'm kind of trending towards myself, but I know a lot of people in this sphere as well, but there is a whole trend towards like homesteading and getting off the grid. And there's some good sides to that because quite honestly, without putting on my tinfoil hat, I don't know where we're going to be in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years when it comes to government control, all that kind of stuff. So I totally get it. In fact, we buy all of our beef for the whole year all at once now. And we're working towards potentially getting a generator in case the grid goes down. So we have some of this too.
You're getting there.
But in this movement, before you think I'm crazy, in this movement, there's a movement towards like isolation. If I just move my family to a 100-acre farm and live off the grid, nobody can get us. We'll be completely isolated and we'll be safe. One of the problems with that is you're creating an individualistic family culture. Like it is only us. But what I see in the Christian life, what I see in Jesus' life, like we have to make that shift from it's not just us. We have to be involved in the church.
It's community.
It's community. We have to be involved in the church, serving a greater
more
purpose.
Specifically, it's men need other men.
Right.
That's
right. So not only do we need to be a part of a church, serving, giving, all that kind of stuff, men need other men. If we're a godly man, who are we mentoring to be a godly man who's a younger boy?
Who are we being mentored by?
Right, yeah. So we have to realize that as men, it's not just about us, but we have other men, other families, other things to influence.
Yeah.
It's not even just our family. It is greater.
I think I heard somewhere, it was this phrase. It was iron sharpens iron.
I think that's the Quran. Sorry if you're a Christian.
You know what I mean? Like
it's a joke.
Well, that's just making fun of myself. Where it's like weird. It's almost like there is a guide. There was a guide who created a guide for us to live by, and we were designed a specific way.
There are universal truths that are found in the Bible.
Yeah.
Here's the fourth shift every man should make from control to surrender. I think one of the greatest problems that men have, men and some women, but a lot of men have, is we want to control everything in our lives. We're going to submit to ourselves and ourselves only. One of my favorite, but also least favorite phrases, because there's some truth to it, but a lot of toxicity to it, is if you want to get something done right, you got to do it yourself.
Do it yourself.
Do it yourself. That sometimes it's true.
Yeah.
But the mindset carries over into a lot of spheres of life where we think that I'm the only one who has control in my life. It's all about me. I can't trust anybody else.
Yeah.
But what we need to do, especially as Christian men, and what the Christian vision for manhood is going from control to surrender.
Yeah.
You cannot be a follower of Jesus without surrendering control.
No, you can't.
You've said it this whole podcast, like you're following God's design. We're submitting ourselves to something greater.
I'll go as far to say as it's not a guarantee for every man, but the likelihood of you just dying, like straight up dying, is do not try to shoulder it yourself. Right.
Well, so there's a guy right now. I think his name is like Brian Johnson, and he used to be a Mormon, I believe, very religious, completely deconstructed, walked away from the faith, and his goal is to live forever. And so I don't know if you've seen him on social media, but he's all over my feed. But yeah, he's taking all these supplements. Like he gets the perfect amount of sleep. He's incredibly healthy. He's like, I don't know how old he is, 55 years old, but he looks like he's 20, like ridiculously healthy.
Yeah.
And his whole shtick is like, I'm going to live forever. Here's what I'm doing. Here's how unhealthy I was. Here's how unhealthy the world is. Here's what I'm going to do. And I'm taking control. And I'm like, you could walk outside today and get hit by a bus.
Yeah.
Like you are not
literally
in control.
where my mind was going as you're saying that.
Like there's a problem here. You're not in control.
There's an extent to what you can control. And there is, it is the percentage, if you could actually see it on a piece of paper, would make those who feel like they're in control cry. Like if you look at all the factors that you are not in control of, that's, again, I just say, let me know how that works out for you when you get hit by a car walking across a crosswalk, right? Glad you took all the supplements.
And I think when we try to control everything, what we're really doing is we might as well wrap ourselves in chains. And it's just like it's gridlock for the rest of our lives. Like if we've got sin in our lives that we're just trying to control and we're not surrendering that to Jesus, if we're not talking to other men about it, like good luck trying to overcome that by yourself.
Yeah.
If we have, bitterness because we have a father wound growing up and, we had a dad who did some poor things or wasn't always there, for whatever reason, there's a father wound in our lives and we're going to sit here with bitterness for the rest of our life rather than surrendering that and confessing what we've gone through. Not confessing like we're confessing sin, but just like talking through it.
Yeah.
Applying the gospel and forgiveness and overcoming. Like we have to surrender our bitterness. We have to surrender our unforgiveness. We have to surrender our sin. We have to surrender our purpose. Surrendering is the Christian life. And more men need to do it, myself included. Everything I say, by the way, is speaking to myself.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Even though I'm perfect, I still have things I need to work on. The last shift here, shift number 5, for boys or immature men to become strong men of God, we have to shift from the temporary to the eternal. Boys think about the now, men embrace eternity. And the first thing that I think of when I think about this is like the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Like boys think of like, how can I add so much pleasure to my life that I just have so much joy and happiness all the time? I think as you grow up, you learn that those things don't actually bring you joy and happiness. There's moments of happiness, I think, that can come, but men embrace eternity. How we live on this earth, if we simply live for drugs, alcohol, money, all of the things of this world, it's never going to fulfill us. You were talking about all the celebrities, earlier, that like they have all the money in the world, the homes, everything.
Well, we see it happen, and yet we still think, well, if it were me, I mean, I've never seen anybody sad on a jet ski before. Like I'd be good to go.
I don't know if I can. I don't have a rebuttal to that one actually, but it was Tom Brady. I heard him talk about this. He was he's in a news interview, and this guy was talking to him. He's like, "You won, was it 5 or 6 Super Bowls at the time?" And he's like, "What's next? I mean, what is this? Have you accomplished it?" And he's like, "There's got to be something more than this." And it's like, okay, let's step back. He was married to Gisele Bundchen. Every man or every boy when they grow up wants to be married to a supermodel. He was. He's got multiple homes across the U.S., multimillionaire, multiple Super Bowls, multiple MVPs. He has everything that every boy thinks is like, that's what I'm striving for. And he is there as a middle-aged man saying, there's got to be something more. So the things of this world I think are good. Like it is good to make money. It is good to provide for your family. It's good to accomplish things. But when you put your purpose and fulfillment in those things, it is a life of ruin. That's where we're headed. So we have to focus on what eternally matters. And I love it. The Apostle Paul talks about this a lot, but he says that every Christian should act in a way that is holy, blameless, and righteous. And he's not talking about like perfection, like you must attain perfection and never sin. We don't want to sin, but we're going to. We're going to be imperfect. But what this is about is how can we live with an eternal mindset where in my life here on earth, I'm not going to chase after all the things of this world. I'm going to chase after holiness and righteousness. I'm going to follow Jesus because in eternity, that's what ultimately matters. God does not care if I'm healthy, wealthy, and rich and everything. What God cares about is no matter how much money I had, no matter who I married, no matter where I live, am I living in a holy, righteous, and blameless way where my life honors God and is a disciplined, holy life rather than simply chasing pleasure?
I think I've seen it I've said this before, I see it with a lot of people, not just men. When it comes to our relationship with God, getting into Scripture, reading His design for our life, right, applying those principles, I feel like for most people, Jesus's reaction, right, like we hardly ever do we thank God for we're in our 30s, right? Hardly do we ever thank Him for the 30 years we went without having cancer. We just blame Him
when we get it.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Or on the flip, when something does go wrong, that's when, even as men, I think when we talk about this surrender, right? As men, it's I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And I think to us mentally, it's a big leap when we feel like we failed when we hit this path of I'm coming to God now because I can no longer and it's almost, when it should be this joyful thing, it's like this shameful thing of like,
I had to rely on the
I'm
God of the
reaching out
universe.
for help and I'm a man and I shouldn't have to do that. I should be able to shoulder all of this by myself, right? And I wanted to say this earlier, but my least favorite saying that I've ever heard, probably ever, is God won't give you more than you can handle. I just think it's complete and utter BS. It needs to be flipped, going with the surrender. God won't give you more than he can handle. So you should always have him in your life. You should always be in communication with him, always be in his word, always learning from him, driving from him, right? Everything we should do should be from him. And I think it's, we need to find honor as men, and I am living my life in a way that honors the design of God, right? It's, don't shoulder stuff.
I love that. I don't know if I've ever heard somebody articulate, but I've felt exactly what you're talking about. Almost a shame or embarrassment that I have to go to God for wisdom, not myself for wisdom. I have to go to God for strength and not myself for strength. And I would bet that if you feel that way and I feel that way, that there's probably a lot of men that are like,
most men do.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, on that, I mean, you go to the gym, you lift weights, you want to get stronger, right? Anything we want to get better at, right? If you want to get better at writing, you write more. You know, me, I do videos. If I want to get better at video editing, I sit down and I video edit, right? A relationship with Jesus, being in scripture, has to be exercising a muscle, right? It cannot be, I can't go to the gym tomorrow and have a 6-pack the next day when I wake up, right? It has to happen over time. And I'm not going to be able to run a marathon today, but if I slowly run from now over time, I'm going to be able to go do that, right? Like when the moment comes when I need to be able to perform because of my training, because of my dedication, because of the time I spent honing in on that craft, I'm going to be able to perform. And treat your relationship with Jesus Christ, who created you as a man specifically to be the way that he wants you to be. Treat it as your training. Treat your relationship as your training. You need to be proactive, not reactive. Hard things are going to come in your life, right? We know this. You sit down every single day, you read scripture, you ask God, you sit in silence. What do you want me to learn from this? What do you want me to take away from this? And guess what? In 6 months or a year, or hopefully never, but probably yes, something hard is going to come. All of that training and that time and that preparation that you've spent with your heavenly Father who designed you, you are going to be equipped for it. Not by your own strength, but he is now going to be flowing through you. And it is not this, I had to come to you because, you know, I'm broken and this is shameful because I should be able to do things. No, use him every single day to build you up and strengthen you for the moments in life when you aren't going to be able to do things, when it is going to be more than you specifically can handle. That's why you have him. That's why, shocking, there's a design to all of this, right?
You know what I think would be really, really cute in your kitchen at home? Is like nice cursive pink lettering that says it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. No. But that's what I thought of the whole time as you were talking about. Like, you're preparing yourself. Like when we think of we have eternity in mind, we're preparing for that. Yeah. And that is ultimately the end goal. We want to be in eternity with Jesus, and that's ultimately what matters. But what gets us there is faith in Jesus now, surrendering ourselves to Jesus now. And some people, I think, they think faith and surrender is simply just like it's a belief and a mindset. But faith, actually in the New Testament, the Greek word that is often used for faith is about action. It's about taking a step of faith. It's about doing something. Like, I can say I have faith, but if I don't pray, what do I have faith in? Faith is showing in my life by way of prayer. It's by way of giving. It's by way of doing all these things. I'm showing my faith every single day. So faith is about taking action. It's about the journey of life. And are we surrendering consistently throughout our entire life to Jesus so that one day we have this eternal mindset and we'll be with him for eternity? I want to wrap it up with a question here. If you could go back to 16-year-old Johnny who's probably an immature boy, because I was at 16.
Throat punch.
Yeah. If you could go back and talk to 16-year-old Johnny and you only had a minute, what would you say to 16-year-old Johnny about what it means to become a man?
I would honestly, I don't, this is not a cop-out. This is honestly probably what I would say is everything I just said is prepare now. Mm-hmm. Like, quit being so dramatic in your 16-year-old. Trust me, boy. Everything you think sucks right now is going to be amplified by 100,000.
It's so encouraging.
Make sure, no, I know.
I know.
It is
I know where you're going.
It is encouraging, though, because it's equip yourself to be able to handle it, not by your own strength, but through the creator who designed you, and let his strength flow through you in the moments that are going to be too much to bear, because it's going to come as a man. And being a husband and a father now, right? Like, boy, I thought things were hard when I was 16. You add a marriage that you need to keep up on, you kids you need to raise, mortgage, bills, this, that, job, whatever. The responsibilities are endless, right? Go to your father, find strength from him, let him flow through you in all that you do, and in the way that you treat your wife and the way that you raise your kids. Like, glorify his design in the way that you do it, right? And understand, humble yourself to understand that you are not the one doing it, right? Like, if you try to do it on your own, good luck. Let me know how it works out for you. You're most likely going to fail at some point in
I got to give you a sermon at some point. I said a minute or less, but sorry. No, you're good. That's exactly what I would have done. If I could say something to my 16-year-old self, and when I was 16, it was like I was smoking weed most days. I was drinking on the weekends. I was just being a dumb kid. But what I would tell to my 16-year-old self is, what has happened to you is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to figure out how to handle it and move past it, or get through it, or become the man that you're supposed to be, regardless of what happened in your past. Taking, with these 5 shifts, for me, the first 2 are the biggest for me: embracing difficulty and moving away from ease, and then embracing others and moving away from self. What I saw, and I'm not referring to just my dad. My dad's a great man, but what I saw in a lot of men when I was a young boy and when I was a teenager was a lot of selfishness, a lot of searching for an easy life, and it's just there's some easier things that you can do, but we have to embrace difficulty and embrace others, and that's what I'm still trying to figure out for myself. Yeah. But if I could have been trained in that when I was a young boy, like, hey, follow Jesus because here's what he's going to teach you: embrace the difficulty. Be selfless, and you will flourish, and everybody around you is going to flourish because you are flourishing, and because you aren't focused on yourself, you're focused on other people. Yeah. Johnny Jacobowski, thank you very much.
Thank you.